GB News presenter Nigel Farage blasted European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and warned the EU chief not to back Poland into a corner as they would not be pushed around. Nigel Farage ripped into Ursula von der Leyen after the EU leader came to blows with Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. The politicians clashed as the Polish Constitutional Court ruled it superseded EU law. As the two leaders exchanged a vicious war of words at the European Parliament this week, Mr. Farage took aim at Ms. von der Leyen and warned her the Poles are not happy. He added the condescending speech given by the Commission President would not have a great impact on the Polish who have struggled with their national identity in the 20th century during a stern rant. The Polish Constitutional Court ruled on the 8th of October that its rules superseded EU law, a finding Ursula von der Leyen has branded deeply concerning. In a letter written to the EU leaders, Mr. Morawiecki accused the bloc of punishing and starving his country, with threats to withhold £48 billion of COVID recovery funds if they failed to bend to the EU's will. Mr. Morawiecki said, "We ought to be anxious about the gradual transformation of the Union into an entity that would cease to be an alliance of free, equal and sovereign states and instead become a single, centrally managed organism, run by institutions deprived of democratic control by the citizens. The language of financial blackmail, punishment, starving of unsubordinated states, undemocratic and centralist pressures do not have a place in European politics. Such language strikes not only at individual states, but the entire community." Mr. Farage discussed the story on his late night show and said, "Here is the headmistress, the unelected headmistress, telling the Poles what they can do. Isn't the level of condescension just something quite extraordinary? And of course the Poles who lived under communism until just over 30 years ago are beginning to say we have had enough of this. And the Prime Minister has responded by saying that we're being blackmailed. We're being starved. And whilst he hasn't directly threatened that Poland will leave, the threat there is implicit. The Poles are not happy. The Hungarians are not happy. There is a giant cultural divide between Western Europe and Central Europe and it's something that is not going to go away in a hurry." Mr. Farage continued and said if you back the Poles in a corner they would always fight back as the country has suffered grievously throughout the 20th century. He concluded by stating they would not be pushed around. Mr. Morawiecki repeatedly stressed the legal issue would not push apart the EU and Poland and it was perfectly manageable to see Poland and the bloc have different legal systems. Polls show strong support for remaining in the EU with some surveys showing 80% support in Poland. However, Ms. von der Leyen argued the constitutional ruling from Poland challenges the unity of the EU's legal order. MEPs have also called for the EU to withhold Poland's share of the large COVID recovery fund if they do not abide by the bloc's rules. Mr. Morawiecki attacked the bloc for overstepping its authority. He said, "EU competencies have clear boundaries. We must not remain silent when those boundaries are breached. So we are saying yes to European universalism, but we say no to European centralism."